All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Brandon with Heroic Athletics. Just wanted to, as promised, deliver some info on our nutrition seminar that we ran the other week. So, Nutrition 101 with Heroic Athletics. If you have any questions or anything regarding this, feel free to talk to a coach, talk to myself, talk to anybody on the team, and we can definitely help you out. But really, the purpose of this is to give you some very basic, high-level information regarding nutrition and how it works within the body. And then we'll touch on some additional things that you can do right away today. And then if you really wanted kind of to go to the next level, you can go through some different nutrition programs, coaching that we can offer. So without further ado, Nutrition 101. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to get my screen working properly. Whoops, did work. We're going to go through some outline of what our talk is going to be about today. So we're going to talk about different energy systems within the body, some macronutrients, micronutrients, their roles in the body, what they are, the importance of sleep and water. We have a really cool infographic created by Precision Nutrition that I think is really fitting and just a great basis to go off of for the cost of getting lean. So, or just some information on like what it takes to get to wherever it is you want to go. And then getting full versus getting fat and the differences of that, and general rules to follow, and some different heroic nutrition programs that we have to offer. Should you want to go that way, if not, you're going to hopefully walk away with some information on this today that you can implement tomorrow to start to see results. So here is the next step. Maybe we'll see. There we go. So energy systems. So this is just basic info, basic introduction to what we do with our training, our different philosophies with training with Heroic Athletics, and really just the science-based approach that we take when it comes to training, and whether it's health, wellness, or performance. So we'll talk a little bit about ATP. So what is it? Adenosine, I will say this wrong, triphosphate. Basically, in layman's terms, it's the body's money, or the body's form of currency as it relates to energy. So we're talking about, this is the compound within the body that helps provide the gas fuel towards anything that happens within the body. For most of our talk today, or most of the reasoning, for your muscle actions. So whenever you're, muscle action, this is my bicep doing a lot of the work of pulling my forearm in. Or if you're running, your muscle actions, your legs need to work in order for you to run. So ATP is really what's needed in order for those things to happen. Also, when you eat food and for it to travel through your digestive tract, ATP is needed for that. It helps produce enzymes, and it carries molecules across cell membranes. That's the really sciencey stuff. We're not going to dive too deep into that today, but certainly if you want to chat about that, you can talk to myself, you can talk to one of the coaches, and we can kind of go through that nitty-gritty sciencey stuff with you, should you care. But our ATP PCR system, or the phosphagen system, is basically, when it comes to working out, when it comes to movement, it's the first energy system to kick in. So it's that explosive energy that is needed for the first, we'll say, initial 10 seconds of an activity. So the best way I can describe it is when you're powerlifting and going for a 1 rep max, that's the energy system that's really needed. When you're Olympic lifting and going for, again, a heavy lift, that's the energy system that's needed. When you're a sprinter and you need to sprint off the blocks, that's the energy system that's really needed. When you're wrestling and just working with a new wrestler here, and you need to be super explosive in order to really take down your opponent, that's the energy system that's really needed. So the phosphagen system is basically anything that's, like, generally speaking, 10 seconds or less, that is really what is that explosive energy. And so the best way I can describe it is, if you've ever tried sprinting, the first few steps, the first little bit, you feel the strongest, you feel the most energetic, we'll say. But if you're truly going 100%, there's you just cannot last longer than the first few seconds or the first minute, or the longer duration that event or that activity takes place, the more you shift from the phosphagen system into the next energy system, which is our glycolytic pathway. So ironically enough, it actually kicks in the same time as our phosphagen system. But what it does is that it produces, or it makes that ATP, that currency, a little bit slower than the phosphagen system does. And so it breaks down stored muscle glycogen and immediately available blood glucose. Yes, that's glucose as in sugar, and helps produce more ATP, which again is needed for that activity. So when we're talking about like glycolytic pathway, it's generally something more like 10 seconds to 2 minutes. Depending on the athlete, there are lots of things you could argue that, that it actually extends up to like 8, 12, 15 minutes potentially. But your glycolytic pathway is what I like to say is you're in the middle energy system. So it helps break down glucose. So it helps break down sugar and basically transforms that into, or uses that to produce more ATP in order to help your muscles and help your body just work and function in that activity as you go forward. And then last to kick in, I'll give you an example of some sports like that. So glycolytic pathway, really good one would be like hockey would be a great one, where it's very explosive, but when called upon, you might need to go a little bit longer, right? Your shift might be 1 minute to 2 minutes of like hard work the whole time, and so you go from phosphagen right away, and you kind of shift into that glycolytic pathway. CrossFit as a sport, not as a training methodology, CrossFit as a sport is a great example of glycolytic athletes who really utilize that energy system where, they don't do anything overly super long. Once in a while they do for sure. And they don't do anything so super short normally. Again, once in a while they do for sure. But I would say 80% of the time they spend their training and they spend their events in that glycolytic pathway energy system, or in that window of time where they're basically giving as much as they can in that window of time. And then lastly, we have our oxidative pathway. So this helps provide energy for longer duration bouts. Again, it pulls out energy from blood glucose, glycogen, and fat as fuels to resynthesize ATP to help you get that energy. So great examples of that would be like obstacle course racing, ultra endurance races, marathons, anything that requires you to like a long sweaty event or activity. Now some would argue, well, a hockey game is whatever, hour long, 60 minutes, 20-minute periods. Been a while since I played hockey. But a hockey game is, yes, it's long, it's an hour. So you could argue that maybe it falls into that oxidative pathway. But you also need to take into account, like, if you are truly playing a hockey game, you're doing like short duration event followed by rest, sitting on the bench, resting, so that you can give another 100% short duration effort. So now where a lot of people get confused is like, where do I fall, or what's important to train? Honestly, all of it. I'm going to get into another video, another time about why lifters should run and runners should lift, which is really just going to talk about these energy systems to a large degree, because the body doesn't work on just one, it works on all. But this gives you a little bit of a breakdown, or a little bit of a high level overview of, generally speaking, what the energy systems are and how they need, or what they need, I guess, to function, which is that ATP. So going from there, macronutrients. So what is macronutrients? So macro is your big three. So whenever you see something macro, it's your big three building blocks to nutrition. So these are your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So carbs are necessary for glucose. As you saw from this slide before, glucose is needed for production of ATP, which is needed for muscle action. So carbohydrates, generally good. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole low carb, keto, low fat, vegan. I'm not getting into that. I'm just giving the basic building blocks as to what these are and why they're important. So carbohydrates, generally speaking, unless you're talking ketosis, and that's another conversation entirely, but generally speaking, carbohydrates are the best way for the body to get its energy, as they provide energy for the body. So we need carbohydrates to live. Your brain really, really, really needs glucose in order for it to function properly. Again, it's carbohydrates are not bad. They are very good. Where I think the common I can't even think of the word, where the common problem lies is that not all carbs are created equal. So when you see carbs, for example, when you're checking a food label, I always encourage people to look at the carb content, but more importantly, look at the sugar content. And not to say sugar is good or bad, is what do you need the sugar for? Because sugar is going to work into that glucose equation that I mentioned earlier. And sugar is just a more readily available form of that, of getting that glucose. So, so sugar, if you're going to go into a high intensity event, whatever it is, a run or a CrossFit event, or maybe a big lift or something like that, a workout perhaps. Sugar is not necessarily bad. Again, overconsumption is a thing, but all of this to say is that not all carbs are created equal depending on the context in which they're used. So, for example, Snickers bar has X amount of sugar content, but it has carbs. Potato also has carbs. Is one healthier than the other? I would argue yes, but depending on the context, the Snickers might not be the worst decision. But again, it's all dependent on what is the context of what you're trying to achieve and what are you trying to do and what do you need that energy for and when. So that's where I have this note in carb amount, type, sensitivity, and timing can be helpful in your overall nutrition strategy and how you like to eat. So learning about nutrition and what carb does what and how and when is really important to educate yourself so that you can make those right decisions as they relate to whatever your goals are. Fat helps with hormone production, provides us with energy, helps balance hormones, forms cell membranes, and helps with brain and nervous systems, transporting micronutrients, and provides essential fatty acids that we can't make on our own. So fats are good. Fats are a good thing, but again, everything in moderation and everything with the context of what are you trying to achieve. And protein helps repair tissue and is the building block of muscle, bones, connective tissues, skin, and virtually every organic tissue in the body. Again, I should have made this note in this too. Not all proteins are created equal either, as are fats, as are carbohydrates. So these are the building blocks, but just because something says it has protein in it doesn't necessarily mean that your body actually uses all that protein. And that's where you get into the amino acids, and there's a little bit more nuance with that. But just know that these are the fundamental building blocks. But at the end of the day, just because something says it has X carbohydrates, X fat, X protein, doesn't necessarily mean it's as good for you as something else. It might have those building blocks, but how your body uses those building blocks, we'll get into with those more nuanced stuff. And in a little bit, we'll touch on our next slide here, micronutrients. So micronutrients, I'm just going to touch on a couple. Honestly, they go forever. I started going alphabetical, and then I realized I was going to need to have like 20 slides on this. So vitamin A helps with protein synthesis, immune function. Red, orange, yellow veggies provide it. Vitamin B1 helps with energy, or producing energy, synthesizing some DNA. Sunflower seeds, beans, legumes, whole grains have it. Vitamin B2, red blood cell production, metabolizes toxins. Spinach, mushrooms, eggs, shrimp, all have it. Vitamin B3, DNA repair, helps skin, digestive systems, and nerves. Mushrooms, whole grains, beef, chicken, pork, they all have it. Going to the next slide. Vitamin B5, drug metabolism. It helps drug metabolism, skin health. Avocados, potatoes, egg yolk, beef, liver, yogurt, all have it. Vitamin B6, glycogen breakdown, nervous system and immune system function. Red blood cell metabolism, chickpeas, bananas, fish, poultry, all have it. Vitamin B7. I mean, you guys can read on and go on and on and on and on about each one of these vitamins, and you'll notice that if you look at what these vitamins, or where you can find these vitamins in these things, there's no like one answer. There's no silver bullet with anything. So calcium, hormone secretion, muscle contraction. Dark green vegetables have some calcium. Fish, rhubarb, nuts, seeds, dairy all have calcium. Vitamin B or vitamin D. You notice mushrooms shows up a lot. Mushrooms are actually like a super fruit, super whatever you want to call it. It's not a fruit, but mushrooms are a great fungus, a great source to get a lot of micronutrients that a lot of people probably aren't aware of. So learn to like mushrooms. But essentially, when it comes to vitamins, I'm going to get into what or micronutrients. These are your vitamins and minerals that are essential for you to function. And if you either have too little or too much of any vitamin, you're going to see some side effects of that. And so you want to ensure that you have a well-balanced diet overall. But when it comes to micronutrients, you want to have a good balance of all your micronutrients. Otherwise, you will see some side effects of that. And perhaps we'll go into an entirely different presentation on what that looks like when you do lack certain vitamins, and some key indicators as to what might show up in your body or life if you do lack those things. But really, at the end of the day, having a good balanced diet will help you ensure you get all your micronutrients. Sorry, I'm trying to go fast, so this webinar is not 4 hours. Water, sleep. So I just wanted to touch on this. Often the most overlooked things that I would say that they're the lowest hanging fruit for performance, for health, for wellness, for body composition, whatever you want to achieve. Having adequate water and sleep are really helpful. Now, am I perfect in this? Absolutely not. But I do work to prioritize my sleep especially, and I'm working on water for sure. It's a daily, we'll call it struggle. But it is something that can really, really, really help any goal that you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to get better from a performance standpoint, focus on water and sleep. If you're trying to lose some weight, focus on water and sleep. If you're trying to not necessarily lose weight because you don't have weight to lose, but maybe have some body recomposition so you feel stronger and feel better and have more energy and more muscle mass, water and sleep. Water, it helps reduce the appetite. It helps maintain your metabolism, which is the way you use the foods, your burn, and it helps expel wastes that your body doesn't need. And sleep really just helps the mind, your cognitive abilities, helps with logic and decision making. Poor sleep habits actually do change fat cells. So if you're constantly underslept, constantly in a under-recovered state, the way your fat cells respond is entirely different. And so if you're working out all the time and you're eating great, but your sleep is like 5 hours and you're like, man, I'm not getting the six pack. I feel like I should have my six pack by now. Well, guess what? The sleep is probably the lowest hanging fruit that is not being utilized. So putting a priority on your sleep, we're talking like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. I understand life happens, kids, work, et cetera, but putting a priority on sleep is important. I'm up at about 4:30 every day. I really work hard to make sure I'm in bed by 8:30 every day so that I can work to get that 8 hours of sleep. Am I perfect with that? Absolutely not. Some days I'm up till 10, but I really work to make it a priority to get my 8 hours of sleep. So I put a little equation there. Less sleep equals less energy, which means less effective workouts. So a lot of people don't sleep a lot and then kind of try and make up for that by crushing some pre-workout. Not that anything's wrong with caffeine, not that anything's wrong with pre-workout, but if that's your strategy where you're trying to make up for less sleep by crushing some more caffeine, that is a way to dig yourself into a very deep hole from a performance, from a health, from a everything standpoint. So focusing and putting priority on that sleep is something that it's a task you can do today to really work at becoming better, whatever it is you're trying to become better at. It'll help with work. It'll help with everything. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Sleep more. So lastly, or not lastly, but one of the things I wanted to touch on is the cost of getting lean. So we, myself and a few coaches are either certified or becoming certified with Precision Nutrition. And if you're not familiar with them, they're, I would say, one of the most reputable, well-respected nutrition certifications when it comes to coaching athletes and just general population. So the strategy with precision nutrition, there's no silver bullet, there's no perfect way to eat, but it's focusing on some healthy habits that are going to help you in the long run. And we really work on the habit and decision making regarding nutrition versus saying, you know, this is the way you need to eat to do this. The Game Changers have recently come out, the documentary on Netflix, and you know, is vegan the right way to go? Yes and no. Like, it totally depends on the person. And I wouldn't, I've talked with a few athletes who've watched that and they're like, I want to go vegan. If that's your reason, I usually try and get them to research and educate themselves a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with veganism, if that's a decision you want to make, but understand kind of some of the downfalls to that. Last year, the big thing was keto. Again, I had similar conversations with everybody. Really, there's no silver bullet. What we do with our coaching and our one-on-one coaching is we really work with the individual in determining what's going to work best for you, what's going to fit your life. And this is a great example as to, or these following infographics from Precision Nutrition is a great way to find out what am I willing to give up to achieve whatever it is I want to achieve. So first one, we'll go through our first slide. Oh man. All right. Looks like doesn't want to show up. That's okay. We're going to go here. Cost of getting lean. Perfect. Okay. So we'll pull this up. Cost of getting lean. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Okay. So cost of getting lean, great article brought out with an infographic by Precision Nutrition. So we'll start on this first one. Body fat percentage. So we're talking about, we like to use body fat percentage as an indicator for health and performance, more so than weight, because really that doesn't tell you anything depending on body fat. Or weight doesn't tell you anything depending on health and wellness. When I step on a scale, I'm, according to my BMI, borderline obese. My body fat is like 12%. So it's that's not the case. So we use body fat as a better indicator. Not that it's the be all end all, but it is certainly a great indicator in lots of respects. So when men have a body fat percentage of 20% or more and women 30% or more, yes, women are going to be naturally more than men, just for their bodily functions, than in the differences that a woman needs versus a man. So benefit to falling back to this unhealthy body fat percentage is that it's easy. You can crush Snickers, crush popcorn at the movies, crush this, crush that, and not really worry about anything. It's really easy to be overweight. Doesn't require work or thought. The trade-offs to having this kind of habit or being in this zone of body fat percentage, you get poor health, low energy levels, poor life expectancy. You have risks of a metabolic syndrome, which is not a good thing, and may need medications to manage various conditions. So these are popping pills for this, that, and the next thing, this condition, that condition. Recently I worked with an athlete, I'm not going to say who, but they struggle with migraines, so they're on numerous migraine medication, maybe partially because of body fat. Again, not to be all end all, but if you're in this zone from a body fat percentage, you are certainly more at risk for some negative consequences than if you were to move to the next zone. So this next zone is starting to get healthier. Okay. So this is where men have a, and I would say this is actually a pretty healthy zone overall, but body fat percentage, men 15 to 20%, women 25 to 30. So some of the benefits you get from being in this zone is you have improved health and energy. Your sleep is a little bit easier to achieve, and your exercise is a little bit easier and enjoyable. You start to become one of those people. But your trade-offs is that it does require a little bit of work into some thoughtful action and planning ahead for your nutrition. You'll look good, but not super lean. So this is where you see The best way I can describe it, you see like a dad who's like super athletic, but he's got, you wouldn't say he's like cut or super in shape, but he's pretty fit. That's this zone here. It does require a little bit of work and more just paying attention to what's going in your mouth at the end of the day. So the next level of that, or the next kind of drop, is that body fat percentage of 13 to 15%. So women, this is a little higher, 23 to 25%. So it's fairly easy to maintain this. You'll probably be able to reduce or eliminate many medications, not all, and again, it's all person dependent. But there is some trade-offs with that. So it requires a little bit more planning. It requires a little minor social sacrifice to whatever it is. So the note says here, exercising instead of hanging out with friends at a bar. Our community is great in that you can hang out with your friends and then exercise at the same time. So that's kind of the benefit of something like this. But it also requires a little bit more attention just overall to all your habits when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to your sleep. Notice that. Note in there. That's not even me. That's Precision Nutrition. May require some time and attention to learn stress reduction techniques. So a quick thing, if you're constantly stressed or constantly in a stressful state due to lack of sleep, personal, work, professional, any habits, if you're constantly stressed or anxious, you may need to learn through working with a psychologist or working with friends or family, or you may need to learn some strategies to reduce that stress, which reduces cortisol levels, which again, we talked about that a little bit in regards to your fat cells. So basically, it requires a little bit more sacrifice and just choosing to have your social circles in healthy environments versus, crushing a beer every night. The next one is body fat percentage, 10 to 12%, women 20 to 22. Still, this is a healthy zone to be in. So you look fit, you have higher energy, better overall health. Yes, you read that right. Fewer food cravings due to balanced diet and exercise regime. So do I get cravings? Yes. Do I get them every day? No. When I was higher in that body fat percentage throughout my life, cravings were much stronger. So your cravings do kind of die down a little bit for those a little bit unhealthier foods. It's relatively easy to maintain once it becomes habitual. So once you can kind of build habits around healthy, sustainable practices, maintaining this kind of body weight percentage, which gives you a good picture, is fairly easy. So I mentioned earlier, this is kind of where my zone is right now. I don't have to work super hard to be in this zone. I have to pay a little bit of attention. But again, look at the trade-offs. It requires a little bit more planning and greater overall attention to your diet. It requires greater time commitment and more consistent exercise regime. So we're talking not working out 2 times a week, but working out 4 to 6 times a week. Are they crushing workouts every time? No. But moving, I have a phrase that I work with my athletes is move every day. Whether it's in the gym or out, just focus on moving every day. And then for some people, may need assistance or coaching to constantly achieve this amount of sleep. So getting a little bit more sleep and coming up with strategies. The best way I can describe it is it's getting to this zone. It does require a little bit more education and a little bit more attention. If you've never been in this zone before, you may almost definitely need a coach to get here. Just because we as coaches, like I've spent, the better part of the last 12 years in the industry of health and wellness and fitness. Most people have jobs and lives and families, and they don't have the time invested from an education, from an experience standpoint in getting to this zone. So having a little bit extra coaching to get here is usually needed for the vast majority of folk, unless you're willing to completely switch your careers into health and fitness. So constantly looking for a coach who knows more than you really is at the end of the day super helpful to get to wherever it is you want to go. The next zone, still healthy zone to be in. You notice there's starting to see a little bit more definition. Now I've lived a good chunk of my life in this zone as well. You'll probably look extremely lean. You have that six-pack, probably have that six-pack. Overall health would be probably good to carefully and balance and minimally processed diet. So we're talking if it comes in a wrapper, don't eat it sort of thing. You get even fewer cravings. Yes, that's true. So there is you're starting to get into some negative trade-offs here. So you struggle in social situations, especially involving those food. Getting into this, eating disorders can start to develop. So I'm really careful with any athlete who wants to get to this level. I usually show them these slides. So may not have time for social opportunities outside of exercise, and may have to give up other hobbies and interests outside of fitness. So this is where I start to have that conversation with athletes as what is your true goal, and what are your values? What's important to you? And what are you willing to trade off in order to achieve this? For me personally, this is like, my life is in this industry. My life is doing this. And so for me to get here, I don't really have to sacrifice a whole lot, because I'm like, my social situations are here. But again, it's what are you willing to trade off? So getting careful into this percentage is where you start to look extremely lean. Not that there's anything wrong with this, but it does require a little bit more attention and a little bit more work to get to this. I would argue quite a bit of work. And then we get into the last slide. So this is what I, again, would argue for 99.9% of people, this is super unhealthy to get into this kind of zone. So this is like a sub 6% body fat for men, and women's less than 16. So the benefit is you feel proud of achieving an athletic goal. So really what this is this is like your magazine shoot bodybuilders. Now, is it attainable? Yes. But I personally don't work with these athletes because I don't find it beneficial for some. I definitely refer them out to other trainers. But if your desire is to get to this, understanding what the trade-offs are is super important. So you have difficulty socializing in most typical situation where food is involved. You may lose out of fun events with family and friends because guess what? You have to go train, or you can't. This is the type of thing where everybody's like doing a family dinner and you've brought in your little Tupperware container of your meal that day. Like that's what's required to hit to this point. For most people, that's not attainable, nor should it be. Big time commitment to measure and weigh and track all food. So this is like super dialed in, like to the gram of everything that you need to eat, both in quantity and quality. Hyper focus on diet and exercise may contribute to disordered eating. Yeah, it's right there. So I'm very, very, very wary of getting people into this zone. In fact, I've only had one athlete that wanted to get here, did very well, but I generally try and keep people in those other zones because those are healthy, sustainable, and relatively easy to maintain. Time required for exercise may crowd all other pursuits and interests. So if you're cool with spending 4-ish hours in the gym every day, you can get to this zone. If you're not cool with that, i.e. you have a life, work, family, anything outside of that, might not be realistic for you to get into this zone, or like I said, right. Again, that the developing an unhealthy relationship with food is something I'm really want athletes to watch for as we get lower on that on this infographic. So here's a great one. So now let's talk what you might consider doing more of and less of for these. So for men, do more, eat processed foods, eat big portions, eat quickly in order to get to this level. Do less exercise, eat fewer whole foods, try not to balance meals, sleep less, do not practice stress management. Like I said, very easy to do. For women, or for the next zone, eat slowly until satisfied 6% of your meals, include 1 to 2 palms of protein, dense foods, and 1 to 2 meals per day. 1 to 2 fists of veggies. You guys can read. Do less, eat fewer processed carbs, but do not reduce carbs drastically. Drink fewer calories, but do not reduce drastically. How do you get to this zone? Eat slowly and only until satisfied at 75% of meals. Feel free to pause this if you guys want to take some notes. Include 1 to 2 palms of protein. Include 2 to 3 fists of vegetables. Exercise 30 to 45 minutes a day. So this is where we can get a lot of athletes fairly easy into this zone. Sleep at least 7 hours a night and practice some stress management techniques. Do less, eating desserts, processed carbs 3 to 5 times per week within reason. Drink 3 to 5 caloric beverages per week. So beer, wine, cider, keep it to less, like 5 or less, like total drinks and not bottles. Next zone is 10 to 12%, 20 to 22 for men and women. So like I said, this is where I sit. Very easy to do, provided you just do these kind of habits. So eat slowly until satisfied for most of your meals. Include 1 to 2 palms of protein at every meal. Include 1 to 2 fists of fibrous, so fiber, vegetables at each meal. Include 1 to 2 thumbs of essential fats at most meals. Include 1, so you see how there's a little bit more work involved here. Exercise 45 to 60 minutes daily. Remember what I said earlier? Move every day. 3 to 4 exercise sessions per week. Working hard, breaking a sweat. So now we're getting into some workouts. Sleep 7 to 8 hours per night, and de-stress daily for 20 minutes. Take 20 minutes. Do for lack of, excuse my language, do fucking nothing for 20 minutes. And do less, eat desserts, processed carbs, only 1 to 2 times per week within reason. And keep your caloric beverages, your wine, your ciders, your beers, whatever, hopefully not pop, but pop too, cut those down to 1 to 2 per week instead of 3 to 5. And then last is our body fat percentage. Cut that down. Eat slowly until satisfied most of your meals, and then you guys can have all this here. Limit your carbs. It's on higher carb days. Eat desserts, processed carbs 1 time. Drink caloric beverages, and you want to start limiting time at restaurants 1 to 2 times per week. And then again, this requires a lot of work. Big list of things to do. Again, not necessarily my recommendation for most people to get there, but if this is your desire, I suggest let's have a chat. So that's a great infographic on that. And I'm just going to move this little thing here. Perfect. On your infographic of the cost of getting lean. That's not the end. So we've got a couple of, or last little bit, getting full versus getting fat. Our tendency to overeat, like I said, not all proteins, carbs, and fats are created equal. Therefore, our tendency to overeat, just because you're full, depends on what you're full of. Are you full of like high calorie foods, or are you full of calorie dense foods? So for example, this shows you how full your stomach gets on oil, how full it gets on cheese, nuts, and butter, potatoes, rice, beans, lean meat, and fish, fruits and veggies. So you can get fuller. These are all 500 calories. And it shows you that, you know, the healthier, more holistic your foods are versus unprocessed. Basically, you can still be full and be in a caloric deficit, I guess is the best way to say it. So getting full on good food is a good thing. So heroic nutrition rules to follow. Rule 1, aim for quantity. So generally speaking, again, balanced diet. So 2 palms of protein for men, 1 for women, about a thumb worth of healthy fats, a fist worth of healthy veggies, and a cupped hand of carbs, be it potatoes, what's another majority? Pasta, whole wheat, whole grains, stuff like that. Small amount, cupped hands. Japanese yams, there you go. Rule number 2, quality. Aim to eat whole foods versus processed foods. Ideally cooking as many of your own meals as possible. There are food prep companies that we've even partnered with that will do this for you if you're short on time, but something you can do. Balance, eat a colorful diet, ensure that you have some variety in your diet, which helps you ensure you get the micronutrients you need. So if you love chicken, cool. Just make sure you have other sources of protein in your diet, such as fish, red meat. My favorite is elk, love it. But get some sort of balance. If you love broccoli, awesome. Make sure you have some peppers, mushrooms, potatoes, or that's something different, carbs, but make sure you have some different colors in your diet. You notice that from the slide before. Rule 4, plan ahead. Failure to plan is planning to fail. Being a little bit prepared goes a long way. So that helps you avoid being caught in a situation where you're like, you haven't eaten all day, and so you resort to McDonald's. If you just plan a little ahead, hey, I'm going to be out and about all day. I'm going to pack a lunch the night before, or pack a lunch the morning of, waking up, whatever it is. This is something I work on. I struggle with from time to time. Sometimes I'm great at it. Sometimes I'm not. We're all human. But planning ahead helps you in not be caught where you have to resort to something that's pretty unhealthy. Rule 5, be real, live your life, don't beat yourself up, make choices according to your goals and how you truly want to live your life. So going back to that infographic on the cost of getting lean, if you go out with friends and you crush, a pound of wings, that's fine. If you do that every meal of every day, probably not a good thing. Just chat. But at the end of the day, like, be realistic with what your goals are, where you are today and where you want to go, and take manageable small steps to get there versus making these huge swings in your habits, which are going to be long-term unsustainable for you to achieve. So those are our 5 rules. And then we have a bonus rule number 6, consistency. That's the key. Stay consistent. Train 4 to 5 times per week. Prioritize your fitness, nutrition, and sleep. And I guarantee 100% of every aspect of your life will improve. Your energy, your mood, your confidence, your strength, your performance, both in the gym as well as in sport, and more importantly, in life. I can guarantee you, if you get to those healthy zones that I showed you on those costs of getting lean, your work will improve, your relationships will improve, everything will improve, guaranteed. And if it doesn't, let me know, because something's off. Or you're actually not where you think you are. Is that fair to say, Jordy? Yeah. So those are our general rules. If you follow those and just do those 6 things, you guaranteed will see progress, 100%. Especially if you follow rule number 6, if you're consistent with following those 5 rules. If you're consistent 3 days a week and you are like super erratic the other 4 days a week, you're not going to probably see the results. If you are great 90% of the week, if you're great, let's say everywhere but Saturday night, but then Saturday night you eat 6 pizzas and a tub of ice cream to yourself, like a 4-liter tub, you can derail yourself a little bit. Will you see progress? Yes, depending on where you're starting and at what point you are today. But I would argue that that's not a healthy way to do it either. Either way, if you're struggling with anything, talk to a coach. But if you follow these rules, you will see progress, guaranteed. So on that talk to a coach, we have two methods that you can work with a coach on. So one is what we call Evolution. It's an app that you can get from us where you get customized meal plans provided to dial in your nutrition and tell you exactly what to eat, when to eat, not how to eat. Hopefully you know how to do that yourself. But it's an app that you get, and we got meal plans delivered on there. The cool thing with the app is you can swap out food items. If you, for example, like you really hate blueberries, but you love strawberries and raspberries, cool, you can do that. We'll find something else blue to get into your diet. But who is it ideal for? So Evolution, the app, is ideal for people who succeeded to some degree in the past on other, we'll say, meal plans or nutrition strategies or stuff like that, and can follow a little bit more strict plan, we'll say. Evolution is entirely customized to the person on what their goals are, and we set people up, and we'll check on your coach will check on your nutrition every once in a while to, ensure that you're making the progress that you want to make. So right now, we also offer another method, which is Pro Coach nutrition coaching. So what this is you'll get daily nutrition habits. This is actually coaching. So this is different than a meal plan. Okay, this is coaching where we're going to educate you on nutrition. We're going to help you figure out what's going to work for you specifically, not give you a nutrition and like, yes, those other meal plans are customized, but Pro Coach is a little bit more involved from an education standpoint. Will help you build habits so that whatever your goal is on that cost of getting lean chart, wherever you want to land or wherever you want to end up, will help you develop habits in step-by-step form to get there. And we want to help improve your knowledge and relationship with food. So if your goal is to get to 6% body fat, cool. Let's get there, but let's not develop an eating disorder to get there. If your goal is to like, I want to relax a little bit, let's get you maybe into a zone that's like, you can have fun with friends. You can drink beer, you can have wings, but not go, to 40% body fat either. So who's pro coach ideal for? Honestly, anybody, but those wanting to learn a little bit more on nutrition and somebody who can dedicate 5 minutes every day to go through their lessons. So really it's waking up, read your lesson, answer some questions maybe from time to time, and your coach will check in with you once in a while, and maybe once in a while we'll even set up a meeting, one-on-one sit down to kind of go through your nutrition and where you're succeeding, where you need help, and go from there. So Evolution Pros tells you exactly what to eat, customized app with cookbooks, grocery lists, everything. Helps produce fast results, and it says daily monitoring from a coach. We have access to it. I'll be honest, I don't check it every day, but I do check in with the athletes on it once in a while, just to ensure that they're making the progress that they want to make. Cons: doesn't improve education, and it can be a little bit more difficult and strict to follow. So that's the pros and cons for Evolution. Pros and cons to Pro Coach. Pros is it helps with many aspects of life, develops root habits around nutrition, daily easy to do lessons, daily lessons sent with feedback from a coach. So you answer questions on the daily lessons, and your coach will follow up and give you feedback on that. Either give you a pat on the back, maybe ask a little bit more thoughtful question. And if I, like the athletes I've been working with, if I see in person, I might ask about some stuff too. It helps develop habits so that you don't go on a diet, you don't go on a meal plan, you just eat the way you eat, and you know how to eat the way you want to eat to last a lifetime. The cons: it's less direct eat this instructions. It's more of like let's experiment a little bit, let's figure out what works for you in your life and your goals. It's a little bit more expensive, being that it is a little bit more in-depth and it's more coaching versus a meal plan. And I would say the time frame to results. Some experiences results super fast, others a little bit longer time frame, because you got to think we're developing habits so that you get a lifetime worth of progress, not a quick fix. We've never been about the quick fix. Can we get people there? Absolutely, but we want to make sure that people are going to live just crush it in their hero's journey, if you will. So those are the two programs. Lastly, I will say, if anybody wants a free, 100% free breakdown, nutrition guide, personalized, customized nutrition guide, hit me up. You can email me at brandon@heroicathletics.com, and I'll definitely just set something up for you and send that to you. I've sent it to a couple of you to go off of. We can chat about it further. If you're looking for a little bit more in-depth coaching, nutrition strategies, coaching, anything like that, chat with us. We can discuss which option is going to be best for you, whether it's Evolution or Pro Coach, and we can go from there. But yeah, hit me up if you want a free PDF file for your nutrition, and we can go from there. Take care, guys. Have a good day.